So, Maji, you saw a movie this weekend.
I did. It was painful.
So, do you have
Do
stories
tell.
to tell from this trip?
I went and saw Pixar's newest Elemental. No,
Oh,
I will
okay.
not see The Flash. I refuse to see it. But, so where do we begin? Okay, there was some pluses. The animation is absolutely gorgeous.
That's nice.
People put a lot of time into the animation. I mean, to the point where you could even see ripples in water. I mean, absolutely gorgeous.
I don't know myself, but I've always heard, like in interviews and stuff, that water is like the toughest thing to deal with animations.
It is. A lot of times games crap out on it because of that.
It's why
Not anymore, though.
It's why James Cameron had to do the water tube thing in The Abyss, because that was basically his test to see if he could do the T-1000, to see if he could do liquid, because it was the hardest thing.
Back in the day, these days, literally what in gaming perspective, what we've unlocked, I believe it was this year or last year, was essentially randomly generated. Like you can just drop the water into a location and it will generate physics based off of your meshes. And essentially what your mesh is every 3D object in your world. So it's just physics bound water.
I guess
is the
Blender's
latest
got a
video
pretty
game.
good water physics program.
It's pretty new. That's top of the line. That's what made Unreal Engine 5 so like through the roof when people were looking at it. One of the many reasons when it came out is because it had physics-based water, and it makes water a lot simpler, and a lot of other nerd shit that makes it a lot simpler that you're actually going to see in movies, and you have been seeing in movies and various
And
shows.
perhaps that's what Maji was seeing. Is that what you were seeing? Do you think they used Unreal Engine for that, or they got their own? Pixar's probably got their own stuff.
It's Disney, so they probably did, because if you've seen Disney actually talk about their like Disneymation or whatever, the way that they put screens up for the actors to see, and it's got like a broadcasted wall. I'm not sure if you've seen any of that, where it's like just
No.
CGI.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that is actually literally from Unreal Engine, 100%. Anybody who's actually kind of rendered anything or familiar with the way Unreal Engine's kind of rendering platform works, you can easily see the fingerprints of Unreal Engine all over Disney's new stuff. And why shouldn't they use it? Because Unreal Engine is free to use, primarily free to use for game design. I didn't see what their movie licensing is, but I couldn't imagine it's too different. But if you ever want to get into game design, it's free to use for you.
Cool. So Maji, as gorgeous as the animation was, it sounded like there was a butt coming for that.
All right, so I felt like there was two different stories going on. The one that they wanted to tell versus the ESG story.
The Studio Notes version.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
So, have you guys ever seen The Good Dinosaur?
I have not.
Sorry, that movie didn't make money.
The first
Yeah.
mid Pixar film.
Yeah. Well, it kind of followed along the lines of Good Dinosaur, where it was what makes the perfect child, what makes the perfect son, or well, dinosaur was son, daughter was elemental. She was born in a immigration family. They built the shop. She was supposed to inherit the shop if she could learn to control her temper. Well, she could never learn to control her temper and couldn't figure out why. So I'm just telling you this part so that the other part could go. Warning, there's going to be a ton of spoilers, but in fact only it made $29 million. I don't think anyone cares.
I don't think most of us are going to go see it. No, I don't think.
But,
If we would have gone to already.
Anyway, so she gets, angry and all that, and she can't figure out why. And then it turns out she discovers she doesn't want to run the shop. But she doesn't have the heart to tell her dad, because that was his dream, that the family shop was the dream. All right. Now, part 2. Remember how I said that there's 2 different stories? Okay, go back to the fact that they are an immigration family. They took a lot of the Indian culture. I see a lot of Asian influence into the movie. But yeah, so they fuse in the immigration. Fire is what everybody's racist against.
Uh-huh.
Like, they even get into a fight banning a kid from going to see a flower because she could light it on fire.
Muy caliente.
The water guy, he is such a soy boy. Like, he cries for no reason, just for the sake of crying.
Ooh.
All the damn time. Luckily, it's not just him; it's his whole family.
So they're in a constant state of catharsis.
Oh, it gets worse. So there's constant racism in your face, constant stereotypes of immigrations. They even throw in a line that says, "Oh, you speak well." Yeah, I've been speaking like this my entire life. Because they indicate the fire has their own language, but they only use like 1 or 2 words in it. But of course, like I said, they're going with the stereotypes here.
So they pretty much had to shoehorn in every single phrase that could be taken in the worst faith way possible. That wasn't meant that way.
Oh, it gets worse. So the whole purpose, there's like this Romeo and Juliet, this love story between fire and water. And the whole reason why water came was because she got mad and blew up her dad's basement, which triggered the water pipes to break. Well, it's Firetown. Nobody can figure out why there's water in Firetown. So the city official says, "Hey, I won't shut down your dad's shop for violating these things if you figure out why there's water in Firetown, because we shut it off forever ago." Yeah, they have their own little segment in the city. That's how bad it is.
I am noticing problems with this plot.
Oh, lots of problems. But the whole Romeo and Juliet is, oh, we can't touch each other. We can't touch each other. We can't touch each other. We'll kill each other. Well,
did they use a condom?
They touch each other and they make steam.
Maggie halfway through the story is going, "Touch each other and end this, please." So
then it goes back to that the heartfelt story, the one that they wanted to tell. And she rejects him because her dad doesn't approve of, elements can't mix and whatnot. And it turns out she's really good at making glass, and he's trying to convince her not to run the shop, but go take an internship at a glass maker. And it, like I said, there was 2 very different stories being told at once. Unfortunately, all I saw was because did you guys ever see Zootopia?
No.
And I have the same problem with Zootopia as I feel I have with Elementals by hearing both their plots.
Yeah, well, they went as extreme in that as they did in Zootopia, as they did in Elemental in terms of the different races.
So Elemental is just Zootopia with elements instead of critters.
Kind of.
Oh, that's a shame.
But I mean, like I said, there was one part of the story you were kind of you could see they were wanting to tell, and then you could see the part where everybody threw in their other shit.
Yeah.
Does it look like the story they wanted to tell if they didn't have to deal with politics in this day and age? Do you think that would have been actually decent?
If they would have taken out the stereotypes, it would have passed 10 years ago. But they put in so much racial stereotypes, it was ridiculous.
But I thought they're supposed to be fighting racism.
Yeah, that's the problem.
But if we get rid of racism, then the SJWs have nothing to get mad about, so they'll make up new racisms.
Well, okay, so I could understand, they immigrated to the city from Fireland. I could see them going, the strange world, not very, not very secure outside around, their neighborhood, stuff like that, and developing that way. And if they kept it that way, it would have actually made a really good story. But then they throw in like the dad fighting the cop because fire wasn't allowed into the botanical garden, and then they threw in, like I said, that you speak really well for speaking, and then they also added they had a non-binary gender fluid water kid.
Of course they did.
That was a lesbian non-binary couple. But even though these were teenagers. They were teenagers, and they put them in.
Of course, it's for kids.
I mean, they only had like a 5-second show or in the movie, but that's 5 seconds of teenagers having sexuality in there.
When you're talking about whatchamacallit, they say you speak very well. I can't help but think of somebody who actually did that somehow a lot better a long time ago. And that was from one of the Wizard of Oz books. I can't remember exactly what happened, but two characters were meeting. And because one of them, they spoke the exact same language, but because one of their languages was called the language of the pumpkins, and that's they called it where they come from, and the other one called it like the language of the munchkins, where they come from, they just assumed, even though they could perfectly understand each other, they're speaking two different languages, therefore they should understand each other. And they went to go get a translator. And after like this big old funny back and forth, the translator finally convinced them that they can talk to each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, these people need to understand that the 50s were a long time, 70 years ago. And the 60s were,
that's why all the racist movies take place back then.
Yeah. Just like, for cripe's sakes. I was just writing to somebody who was asking me about, because I got consulted by somebody for a book about racism.
10 years ago?
Well, hang on. A book about racism. And she asked me what I thought about the topic. And I said, I'd like to go back to the 80s. Where where it was like a big hair, it felt like a big hair utopia. We
I'll be right back.
We had, we didn't, every generation has its race issues, but it's like this was nowhere near as bad back then, and it just, oh my god.
When I was growing up in the 80s, nobody cared about ethnicity.
No, nobody did. So.
I mean, I'm sure somebody did somewhere, but
there's always going to
other than stand-up comedians, nobody cared.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be somebody who cares about it, but it's like the 50s ended 70 years ago. So, gee, for cripe's sakes. All right, what were you going to say?
Huh?
Wow, and you were even old back then.
Well, Jersey said Disney will note any movie to death. I believe you. Official Chill Kid, Working Class Retrowave. I saw that one. It's a family favorite. How you doing, Chill Kid? What's up, man? Which one did you see and was a family favorite? That was probably posted long ago. I don't remember where in the conversation that one's lining up with.
Well, there's a score of good Pixar films, so.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it would actually be a decent movie if they weren't throwing all the stereotypes and shoving it in your face. Like
it's to the point where it's just sickening to see it now. It's just so often.
If they just left it, she fell in love with a water guy and kind of went that way, it would have been okay. It was kind of cute, but they threw in all that other garbage that you couldn't help but know that's exactly what they were thinking. They weren't telling a story of fire and water. They were telling a story of racism.
And here's the problem. When they do all this, we're going to talk about racism with this group, with that group, using this context. They did it in Zootopia. They're doing it in Elementals. It doesn't work because there is no such thing. There's this whole race idea is complete BS. It was made up many years ago. There's one race, the human race,
Yep.
Just because people have different colored skin does not decide how they act or personalities or anything. We are all have the same for the most part, have the same organs in our body. We all have a brain. We all have a heart. This is all BS. So when they try to teach racism using elements or trying to use different animals, it doesn't work because different species of animals have different bone structures, different organs. They mate with different species. Same thing as when you get into with the elements, it's like there are very certain things, fire, water, earth, air, do, and what happens when they interact, why you get new creations out of it.
Stormcrow will tell you.
That, yeah, well, you know.
Or I'll put it this way. The original Star Trek did this all better. Like way better. So I mean, if you look in those stories, it's all of this same type of stuff, all hidden in those stories, but done with like way better. Is done with way better writing, and it's like at one point or another, if you want to get into that type of stuff, go watch Star Trek and stop sucking as a writer. No, I'm dead serious.
2009 Star Trek.
That's
like,
the first one. Jim Kirk.
When
Spock,
they did
Spock,
a dancing.
Spock. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So, like the fire and water dude did a dance
Jim, I'm a
together.
doctor, not a. Go ahead.
They were dancing and creating steam between each other. They were having a chemical reaction to show that they could be together.
Okay.
Wouldn't the steam, though, kind of eliminate water from the plane of existence?
Actually, in the movie, it did for about 2 minutes until she got him to start crying, and then all the steam accumulated, and he came back.
Okay, so they just got to keep a roof over them. They can't touch each other out in public, though.
So like a Game of Thrones ending.
Evaporate.
Wait.
Game of Thrones has an ending?
Yeah, a bad one. Did the fire guy say, "You're my queen"?
No, he just bawled. The fire person just made the water dude cry a lot.
Looks like Chilke was referring to The Good Dinosaur when he was talking about when I asked him which movie.
Mm-hmm.
What I would have done is I would have made the water dude really buff. Instead of crying, he'll sweat a lot because he works outdoors like a real man.
I honestly think Disney's trying to make kids stupid. I mean, like really stupid.
Well, see, they don't have to try. It's because none of them are smart in the first place. So all they can do is dumb down even further. You know,
we're seeing the revenge of the participation trophy generation. So I'm dead serious. You know, no one's ever. The world is a competitive place, and when you stop getting rid of competition, this is what you get.
Well, it's the sportsless generation, is what I call them, because even if you got the participation generation, you still had to lose the freaking game. That was clear. You lost. These guys were never in the game to begin with.
Yeah. So, and by the way, Up was probably the last good Disney cartoon ever made.
Oh, that pissed me off.
Oh, they do an Up thing?
The stupid damn movie started with a short of Carl trying to go out on a date.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is kind of insulting to like Up.
Like, he was trying to get ready for a date. And I'm like, I didn't want to watch that. Why the hell did they put it at the beginning of the movie?
Who's Carl? Is this like Walking Dead Carl? Where's Carl? Carl.
No, the Up guy. Up's name is Carl.
Oh, okay.
He's Carl.
Ellie's his wife. And then if the short ended with him walking over to his wife's picture and saying, "I'll be home by 11."
Jason!
You know, they
ruined their own legacy.
I know. That was a great ending where he found, happiness with the kid again, and